grew up in a family of teachers. So
Oh, very cool.
yeah.
Okay.
My mom retired a couple years ago, but 4 aunts and my grandfather, and then the other side's
cool.
electricians.
Okay, absolutely.
So I have a cousin who's a nurse, and I'm in banking. We're like the weirdos.
Gotcha.
We show up to a family
gray sheep
event,
of
and
the
they're like,
family.
"What do you, banker, weirdo?"
Well, I think for a long time, people didn't really want to talk about cannabis use in education, and obviously we don't want kids using cannabis. But I think educators are definite users of cannabis, and now that it's been open, it's been cool. Like at our, I work for a company called Love is an Ingredient. We have a couple different retail stores, and we have a discount for any educators that come in, and it's very much like oh, if any other teachers knew about this, like everyone would be here, and it's.
Yeah.
I think, yay cannabis industry.
Yeah, I came home last night with a 12-pack of THC drinks.
Mm-hmm.
My mom's like, "Oh, good, you got drinks." And I was like, well, yeah. And she's like, "Can I have one?" I'm like, yeah, "Absolutely, but it's not alcohol."
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, "What?" I was like, "It's THC." I was like, "Remember, I quit drinking." She's like, "Oh, yeah." She's like, "I'll have one." I'm going to give her another one tonight. She talked a hell of a lot less.
I love that. I love that so much.
Ma, you want a drink?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Here, I'll pour you one. That's so funny.
Yeah, my mom is for what she did, she's a high type A and
Okay.
everything and moving, going, da-da-da. So it's like perfect.
Very cool.
You're perfect right now, Mom.
See, and that's what I love is that I think cannabis, THC products, like so many of that stuff was reserved to just like the people that were willing to break the law for a long time. And now that your standard adult is able to go into a store and legally purchase these products, I think we're finding so many people that 5 years ago wouldn't have been interested in it, but now that it's legal, regulated, safe, available for purchase, like it's so much of a different game.
Yeah, it was even like when we had kids, before kids, we were smokers, not consistently, but a good bit. And I was like, oh, we're doing the adoption process. And it's like, especially we're in North Carolina. So it's like, yeah, we'll just remove that from our life.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh, it's just, you stop at the store and you stop at Top 10 Liquor. That's where I go. It's by my house.
Yeah. And
that's where you can get Yoni stuff. So
yeah, exactly. Well, and the fact that it's at so many, like, it's not just reserved. Like we're here at the Dabbler Depot, which is cool. It's cool to have a cannabis forward shop, but we're in the state of Minnesota where cannabis is available at so many places that are not just cannabis forward or traditionally cannabis friendly places, which is why actually I'm really excited to chat with you today, because I think alcohol is one industry that has previously not really touched cannabis. And in similar ways, I think banking has been one that has been tricky to figure out how does cannabis interact with this, with hemp regulations, with adult use, federal cannabis regulations, with state regulations. It's a thicket, I think.
that's the appropriate way to say that.
Yeah.
It's, even still today, you have the banks that want to dabble, but they just don't know. And that's kind of the way the space has been since medical came and the different verticals, right? The hemp bill and then the low potency. And you want to get in, you see, you have current clients that are moving into it, but you don't know. Yeah. So you kind of have to do it, or you do it to a place where you can't fully help your customer. And there's a lot of great banks in the state that have gone the other way, and I'm proud to be part of that. But there's banks that are picking up that and saying, all right, we have our directions, and there's things like the certifications with the PBC or whoever that allow you to learn more before you dive in. Because before, like when we got in 10 years ago, just talking to our board members, that they were behind it, but they didn't know what they didn't know.
Yeah, for sure.
They were like, we want to do this. Okay, figure it out. And now you don't have to, you can know it before you get into it, which is just a huge change. There's so many, my certifications come from the PBC conference, but there's 20 different places to go that can get a staff or a board or a CEO, whoever on board ahead of time, because they know what's right. There's people to talk to. I probably talked to 6 different banks about the good, the bad, like what's hard, what's not hard, what do you got to worry about, which I was saying to somebody the other day, when I got into banking 20 years ago, if I would have told you I spent 75% of my time on cannabis, it would have been a career change, right?
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
And now that's my job.
Let's get into that. I I'm excited to have you here today. For people that are maybe listening on the audio version, tell me a little, like, who are you? Why are you here in our studio today? Brandon, I'm happy to have you here, but what brought you into the studio?
So Brandon Padget, I work for Union Bank and Trust. We're in Minneapolis, and give you the dime story about who we are, because it ties to this space a lot. We were founded in 1976 by the 24 building trade unions in Minneapolis, right? So those are the people pave your roads, build your buildings, make sure your air conditioning is working at work.
Yeah, absolutely.
From Boilermakers to glazers to put the glass in the window, right? They founded it because they wanted a place where their money was respected and revered. Maybe is definitely the wrong word, but you're a labor union, you put your money into a big bank, Fortune 500 bank. Well, where does their money go when it comes to campaign time, right? It goes to both sides.
Yeah, exactly.
One side kind of leans to one way or the other, right? So we're founded that way, and Hubert Humphrey cut the ribbon on the bank back in the day.
Very
so
cool.
Hubert Humphrey was, and those type of people were part of the founding of the bank. So come forward in 2014 with medical marijuana, our board was in. They wanted to do it, and we were lucky enough to start with medical.
Okay. Which put you guys at like the really early days of that.
Very early stage.
I think there are a few financial institutions or just institutions generally that have been in the cannabis game since 2014.
Yeah.
What were those early days like? You mentioned the board was behind the idea of it, but
100%.
What was it like being in cannabis finances in 2014?
Unknown.
Okay.
I wasn't with Union at the time. So I went back and talked to our board members. We still have 7, if I remember right, that were part of that decision. And their recollection of it was crazy space. It's something that people knew about, right? Like, it's, instead of ibuprofen or alcohol, I can chill out after I paved a road or I pulled a bunch of wire or whatever. So it wasn't that people weren't using it. So they got into it with trepidation, like anybody would have, because it was a brand new world and had to figure it out. And the team back then did a great job of, there's the FinCEN guidelines and the Cole memo and just understanding all of that and working with, we're a state regulated bank. So you work with the FDIC versus the OCC. That probably doesn't make a lot of sense to people, but and so getting guidance from
but like the boilerplate or the bread and butter of it means that from a regulation standpoint, you're much more tied to those state regulations than you are federally, correct?
Yeah.
So that's what makes it so that you guys are able to play a little bit more in the cannabis space. Yeah,
you don't have to worry about, you have to basically, like with the Cole memo or the FinCEN guidelines, show that you're following those and show that you're doing due diligence. Your customer, that's the biggest one. KYC is a huge, if you're in banking, KYC, know your customer. So you've seen where they're at, you've seen their product, you understand where it came from, what they're doing, just understanding the person.
Okay.
And that's any banking. If you're going to bank somebody, you have to understand them, but especially now because they're not so much now, but 10 years ago, there was risk of, would that money be seized? Or maybe not risk of it, but the fear of it. So the bank did all its due diligence and, through our medical client, got really good and worked with the FDIC and built a program. And I would just shout out Debbie Foss. Nobody here is going to know her, but she's been with Union Bank and Trust 40 years now last month.
Wow. And
she's our VP of operations. And she just dug in, and we have recently gone with the third-party fintech to support our cannabis industry clients that make sure they're, they don't have any variances, make sure their license are up to date. They don't have any bad news out there, and it does all that.
Totally.
And that's something we brought on, and we don't pass on because it takes 6 people to do that work.
Yeah.
So it's a really cool product that goes out to them, make sure they're safe. I forgot where I was going.
No, you're so good. No, so tell us a little bit more about, so that's the history going back to 2014. Coming forward to today a little bit, when did you come to Union Bank and what is it that you specifically do there?
So I came to Union Bank 20 months ago.
Okay.
New title, or new, I guess it's 6 months old. I'm the chief deposit officer. So at the end of the day, what does that look like? Anything that touches your cash would roll through me, right? So people at the teller line, the bankers that open your accounts, treasury management. So what treasury management is your ACHs, your online banking. It's how your money moves.
Yeah, for sure.
So that rolls through me. So that
the thing that keeps it all flowing. Yeah.
So that comes obviously then with the cannabis industry. All those right now, it's really just money movement, and we've been lucky enough that our board is all in on it. And Nate, who is our our lending officer, is learning every day, and we have a few cannabis loans out there, and we're going to continue to try to move that space forward. But so what I do every day, I was promoted to chief deposit officer 6 months ago with the idea of how do we drive this space forward. Our board, after the medical came, they saw members being able to have easy access to good product, whether it was the THC or maybe just CBD, or
Yeah, for sure.
they could kick an opioid, they could bend over, pick up a grandkid, they could sleep. I don't know if you guys have ever done manual labor. Unfortunately, I've spent some summers doing that, and even in my 20s, it hurts.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you're in your 50s, I think about somebody like my dad, whose kidneys started to go just from ibuprofen. He's not even a big drinker, and he's one of hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people that are in that type of pain. So the board saw those effects.
Yeah.
Went deeper and deeper, and so their mission to us and as a bank is, how do we support this industry better? And so how do I do that? It's meeting people like you, right?
Yeah.
Spoke at CannaCon, at the Canna Connect event. How do you share, educate, connect people? I feel like half my job is either being connected to somebody or connecting somebody just to drive this space.
But that's so cool. And it's really cool hearing that your organization doesn't just, want to support cannabis business, but really sees the effect that cannabis can have and sees that as sort of part of a mission of spreading that.
Absolutely.
I think that makes you unique, especially and I don't mean to say this in like a negative tone, but I think in the financial industry, I think cannabis is not as looked upon as favorably, with rightful justification when it comes to federal regulation.
Right.
But it's cool to see a financial institution here in Minnesota supporting cannabis businesses and supporting just people that are looking to increase access to cannabis. How does that impact the work that you guys do? You mentioned that you obviously have support from the people that run your organization, but does that, do you think, gives you better understanding of what people are actually going through day to day with their business?
It does. I think so in the two aspects, right? You look at our board, it's either retired business managers or active business managers that are supporting the men and women that are crushing themselves every day to make sure we have better lives. So you can't go to those guys and say, oof, that's going to be a lot of work.
Okay. Yeah, for sure.
That response, you're not going to get a good response there, right? So it's definitely a roll your sleeve up, and there's so many things we're learning, and I mean, ever changing. You guys get it. From 6 months ago to today, what the OCM has said to now, it's constant learning and listening, and trying to understand businesses. And I think the thing about, to be a good banker, sometimes you have to tell somebody no, right? And understanding that, like, you're not ready. You haven't gathered, you have an idea.
Yeah.
And you have $30,000 that you've been working your butt off to save. What's the real plan, though?
Yeah.
So
I
pushing
think that's
back
super
to
fair.
them and saying, hey, slow down. We've seen, through whether it be case study, whether it be talking to other bankers in exhausted states, the Colorados, Washingtons, Californias, those states that have done it for a while.
For sure.
It's slow down.
Okay.
Let it settle a little bit. You've worked so hard for this money. I know you want to be in the space, but you don't seem ready. And that's not just in cannabis. That could be somebody trying to start a construction company or anything. It's
for sure. Yeah, I think cannabis is unique in that every single person that wants to start that business has to go through that lottery system. And yeah, I agree with you. After chatting with people, I think, are all 1,800 of those applicants ready to start a business?
No.
Probably not. No. So let's talk a little bit about that the adult use market that's coming on board. For someone who maybe does win that lottery, they suddenly now have a license to open a micro business. But maybe they don't know a ton about what a financial institution can offer them. Can you tell us a little bit about what Union Bank and Trust could do for a new cannabis business?
I think especially through Denise, that's our VP of Treasury. She's 20 plus years in banking and helped business owners along the way. She understands, right? The social equity aspect is huge to her, right? She's a widow of a veteran, right? A minority in the space. So she's seen how those things happen. She's a lady, so she's seen all these different things that affected her worldview. And on top of all that, she's just a phenomenal banker. And so she's dug in, whether it's going to the Minority Cannabis Association's events or the women's, just understanding all those things. But her bank background allows her to give sound advice. Like, who have you talked to? Have you talked to one of the cannabis friendly lawyers, and do you have a good business plan? If you talk to a cannabis friendly CPA, do you understand your finances? Do you have somebody in real estate that's going to get you a space that's not canna tax, that's just it's going to burn up all your cash? Because having a cool space is awesome, but if all your money goes back, just like it's like being house poor, right?
Oh yeah,
it's the same idea. If it's all going to go back into your rent, you never get to reinvest.
Totally. It's the how much will it cost me to start my business? We'll take whatever number you have in mind and 1.5x it, because that's what it's going to probably end up taking. And I think a lot of people aren't ready for that reality.
Another thing too is we've done, like I said before, it's meeting people and connecting people. So we have the partners because of the legality nationwide. There's a lot of people, like our core processor won't move cannabis money, right? So, but you go to our website, there's our cannabis banking tab. It says ACH. It says all the things. We don't directly do those, but we've talked to the people that we believe in the space are here for the same reason, to move the space forward.
Okay, for sure.
Not just make money. They're going to make money. You don't get into business to not make money.
Absolutely.
But trying to bring partners in that can fill where we're federally locked down, that can move that money, that will move that money and do it for the right reasons. So, you know, I probably talked to, I don't even know how many people I talked to in those spaces of the money movement. And we've come down to 3 that we think we like and have sat with and know. And same thing with our risk platform. You know, you talk to the owner of that platform. He grew up on a farm in Texas. His dad switched over to hemp farming.
Okay.
And so his mission is, how do we make this easier for people like that?
Yeah, I love that.
Is he going to make money? Yep. But he's doing it for the right reason.
Well, and there's, you know, what's the phrase? A rising tide lifts all ships. Like, I think this is an industry where people are going to make money. And the trick is finding partners that are in it with that same vision as you.
Right.
Going in and saying, hey, yeah, I need someone to process. I need someone to grow. I need someone to do all of these things so that I can open my retail store.
Yes.
And we can all succeed when we all do that together. That's really, really cool. Yeah. So take me through a little bit more about, like, what does it look like to start working with a bank? We had Jen Riza from North Star on not that long ago. And one of the things that she said that sticks with me is, you know, people think of getting like a lawyer on retainer as like this big complex thing.
Right.
And really it's just sort of signing a paper that says you're my client and giving me a couple $100 and now we can start working.
Yeah.
What does it actually look like? You've got a cannabis business. You think, man, I probably need a bank account. I probably need a way to process funds. I'm going to be selling stuff. How am I going to do that? What is that first step of actually working with Union Bank and Trust?
It's one, just reaching out, whether it's via our website or LinkedIn, you know, quite a bit through LinkedIn, but reaching out and then, you know, understanding your business, right? What do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? Do you have the right partners? And we'll talk through that and we can introduce people too, but it's really as simple as an application.
Okay, for
and
sure.
The license, right?
Yeah. That's the helpful part. Yeah.
So a lot of it right now is over the last month, people that have hope for that license, but you get it going. You get it linked to your website, whatever they need to do between Denise, myself, or the guys on the floor, they can direct them to the right places, but it's maybe even simpler than Jen's. There's no couple $100 to give.
Okay. All right. Totally.
You fill it out. We get you signed on, get you on your online banking, get you anything you need, a card, you want a processor, things like that. We'll make those introductions. And then $100 deposit, you know, and that basically has to stay overnight and move on. But it's as simple as any bit. You've opened a checking account before. Yeah,
totally. Going to the bank, filling out a form.
The extra step would be, are you licensed with the state? And I don't mean the cannabis license. I mean, just did you file your LLC or your corporation or whatever with the state? And we can help with those things too. We have, again, by myself, the guys on the floor, or Denise can direct you to the right page. You need an EIN. If you're going to be an LLC or a corporation, you can't use your social, right?
Yeah.
So we can get you to those right places too. We can do all that setup.
I think that's going to be so important, especially for the first round of social equity applicants. You know, we'll see who ends up winning that lottery, but it could be a lot of people who have maybe never opened a business before. Yeah. This is sort of that first bit at the market. And I think, you know, registering your business sounds like, well, of course you have to do that. But I think for a lot of people, maybe that first step isn't as clear. I appreciate you mentioning that, and that you guys are there to help sort of guide people through that process. So tell me a little bit more about, you've been in the industry, you've been chatting with people for the past 20 months. For people that are looking at the cannabis space, and it surprises me, but people still are looking at getting into this, what kind of advice would you have for people? Obviously, reach out, get connected, but what else should people be doing now to get ready for tomorrow?
Well, you even kind of said it, right? You can't outrun your checkbook. It's as simple as that. If you think it's going to cost you $10,000, it can cost you $30,000. Be aware of that. But have your partners in place, whether that's your distributor, if you're retail, or that's your money movement, which we can help with, right? We have the partners that'll help with that. It's definitely your checking account. Who's going to help you? You know, just over 20 years of banking, when you see companies fail, is they outrun their checkbook. They don't pay attention to spending. They don't even know what they're spending.
Yeah.
They bring in the wrong partner. And sadly, it's typically a best friend. It's a family member that doesn't have the work ethic that they do. It's not their money. So that's kind of where some of the spending goes to. So you see a lot of businesses fail in that first 3 years because they've spent too much and they don't have the right partners.
Yeah. And I think that's such a
buddy, right? It's totally. Oh, my buddy does this. So okay.
And that's such a good point, especially in this in-between time. I think there were people that back when the application window was open, filed with a friend thinking, hey, this is going to be a great business. And now as we're getting closer to licensure and that might have to become a real business, people are realizing, maybe the stuff on my cap table, I don't actually really think that that's how I want to run my business.
We've seen it both ways at the bank, right? We've seen places go up, this label, and then those friends realize, oh, wait, we have different visions. Now this place is this label, or even the inverse. We've seen two bigger players come together and form something else because it's like-minded. They've seen each other's work. So I think just from the finance side, there's so much more planning than people think.
Yeah.
An idea is not a business. It just, when it comes to your money, that a good idea is a good idea. And that's kind of where it ends.
Yep.
There's a lot of planning, a lot of connection. And the other thing I would say, and I think you guys do it well, most of the people you have on this podcast, if you're trying to get into this space, the CRB space, whether it's hemp or it's THC or it's low potency, you got to meet all those people. Pretty much everybody that's been on your podcast, right?
Yeah.
You should know them in some sense, some way. And I was going through it. It's like, oh shoot, yeah, we know.
Hey,
that's awesome.
We appreciate that. Yeah, no, it's been fun. We started this podcast right before legalization went into effect, and it's been cool documenting. Obviously we still don't have a bunch of stores open, but we've been able to see a little bit of that rollout of advancement on medical, on people being able to home grow, people being able to have and trade with others. And we appreciate having people on that are trying to, like yourself, move the industry forward and just figure out what is Minnesota cannabis going to look like. So
we know in 3 years it's going to be different than it looks like next year.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Even 3 months from now.
Yeah, definitely 3 months.
So I'm going to be that bad guy that asks you the question that I think everyone is asking that doesn't really have a perfect answer. But there's going to be a lot of people that are going to get a license and say, now I'm going to start my business. How the heck am I going to pay for that? What kind of funding options are available for people in the cannabis space? Are there loans available? Just like what does that look like?
So there's a lot of private equity, venture capital out there, right? And
okay.
That's going to be where you're going to be able to go without any hard assets. We can't live in that space, and until repeal or safe banking, we can't tap into USDA funds. We can't tap into SBA funds.
For sure.
So typically when you would see a social equity type of applicant, that's where we would help them. We have lots of SBA, the Small Business Administration. Sorry, I'm speaking in bank lingo.
No, you're good.
That's where you would have them go, right? There's going to be a 75% guarantee for the bank. And then that, if you borrow $100,000 and you go up, you're going to owe the Fed or the bank back 25, right? So it's a huge umbrella or whatever, parachute.
Okay. Yeah.
Without repeal or safe banking, they're just in the federal, still being Schedule 1 or even Schedule 3, probably not going to get USDA or SBA money. So right now we have several, it's a loose term, a handful of cannabis loans on the books, whether it's real estate or it's equipment. We just decided, and we're looking at how do we do, and we're trying to underrun right now. We're going to do 25% of product, right? So you're actually what you have on your shelf, whether it's drinks or it's flour or it's your glassworks or whatever.
Yeah, the hard consumer goods.
Yeah, right. So we're looking at 25% of those assets. So just to make it easy, again, you have $100,000 in drinks. We're looking at loaning $25,000 against that, right? So
Okay, for sure.
if your business fails, pretty easy to, if they have a distributor already, the distributor wants to move that, right? It's in a retail shop. The retail shop wants to move that, right? So is there going to be a loss? So that's kind of our protection.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right now, but how can we get people working capital? And that's the thought process. And I just give it back to Nate and then Taylor Rollins, who's a commercial lender for us, who have done that legwork and try to figure that out with the board's approval. The board looked at it and feels comfortable but then it's going to come back to underwriting, right?
Yeah.
It's you and your partner. Do you have maybe 3 partners? Do you guys have good credit? Have you paid back loans? Do you have other assets out there? And something we'll have to add into it is if it's seized because of federal, we'll have to add a little note there, because other states, people argued, well, it was federally legal and you gave me the money, so I don't owe you the money back. So little additives to the loan docs that would be a little different.
Absolutely.
Legalese would be different, but in a sense, we don't care if it's federally seized, pay us our money type of thing. But yeah, so we're trying to figure out, how do we help people? Do you have trucks? Do you have equipment? Do you have, you bought your home 15 years ago. Can we use some equity to give you upfront? Some sort of asset is the easiest way to go to get that funding. And then it's going to be your history. It's going to be, we can't look at your cannabis banking history, right? For these new people, but did you own a business before? What did that look like? With commercial lending, it's a little different than if you walk in to buy a car, they see credit score and pay.
Yeah.
Cool. You can get this car. It's a little different in commercial lending. They want to look at all aspects. What are total assets? What are the hard assets? What's your experience? What it do? And generally, they talk about character of owners. That's one of the 5 C's of credit. Do you think this is generally a good person with good ideas that wants to do well, right? What's the character? Are they just here because it's a quick buck, and you kind of see the way they treat people or treat the situation, or, you're looking at helping good people move a good industry forward. So there's all kinds of things out there. From, you could do a term loan, 5 years, right? That's, everybody understands a term loan.
Totally.
If you do commercial real estate, typically that's not what people are used to. So you want to buy a building for your business. That's going to be a 25-year amortization, but it's a 5-year note. So at the end of that 5 years, all that money is due. So on the consumer side, that looks like a balloon, right?
Yeah.
It's just a renewal. So what typically you look at the last 5 years, look at their taxes, look at the money they made, how do they reinvest, how they done, look at the things like what's the news check? Have they done things the right way?
So it's more of like a checkpoint, sort of, as we guide through the process, making sure that before we extend another 5 years, things are good under the hood. And
then it gives you the ability for us either to adjust a rate up or down. In the last 5 years, it's been more advantageous to banks, right? Rates are rising. Well, now we see rates dropping. So even if you get in today and you're not necessarily, I'm not happy with that commercial real estate rate. Well, 5 years, can't say, but it looks like things are coming back down. That line of credit I lost my train of thought for the word I'm looking for, on your inventory.
Yeah.
Right. So we can get you some of that working capital, because if you're putting it in an inventory, how are you paying payroll? How are you buying or paying the AC bill or whatever? What are those ancillary things you don't think of?
All the things.
I got my product now. Oh, shoot. I got to keep the lights on. So that those working lines of credit that we're talking about, where you can try to loan against 25% of that inventory, is huge.
Yeah. Well, and that could be game changing for people if they're able to get some hard assets, able to get some inventory, and then realize that they're a little bit short. Having opportunities to go and say, hey, I've put all this money in, I have all of this value, I can show that, is there funding available for me? Hearing that the answer is actually yes I think way better than it was 10 years ago in our industry.
Well, I mean, we're just talking to people around. It's like,
sorry,
go ahead.
Can we just put that mic closer or more between you and Tanner? Yeah, talking through it.
Perfect. Yeah, there we go.
Got
Wonderful.
it. Okay, perfect.
Carry on, sorry.
What was I talking about?
Tanner,
Oh, yeah, no, you're good. So let's see. We were talking about the I saw your finger. No, you're good. You're so good. No, you're so good. I'm really good at tracing back my thoughts sometimes. We were talking about, So for people who are able to secure assets, people that are able to get inventory, hearing that there's some funding available that could sort of be an additional stopgap, like we were saying earlier, it's always going to cost more than you expect to open your business.
Yes.
Hearing that there's funding options available, I think is so different than a decade ago when
Yes.
people were first starting to get into the medical industry here in Minnesota.
That's right. You tripped my brain now too. So you talk to these people, especially at these shows, right? Whether it's Lucky Leaf or CannaCon or wherever, and they're like, "Oh, our bank just said no," and we've made a point to say we want to say maybe,
Okay.
right? Because there's when it comes to commercial underwriting, so many people, and I'm going to say it one more time. So many people are used to consumer financing. I have money. I have a good credit score.
So
well, those are
yeah.
2 out of
so many factors
20,
in
25
business.
factors that are going to go into the commercial loan, right? So maybe is a huge step for our industry. Even talking to other bankers or talking to a private equity guy Wednesday from San Diego who was like, "Oh, you would do this amount of money on equipment." Well, yeah, if they qualify, right? And he's like, "Oh, they've been in business in California forever and ever." Well, send the deal. We'll absolutely look at it. And he's like, "Oh, my bank partners don't say that. They just say, no, it's cannabis related." At some point, I don't know when that point is. I don't think anybody in the room knows or listening knows. That's got to go away because in our philosophy, and I think everybody we associate with in this business space in Minnesota is operators or growers or whoever, they're a business. And if you're going to choose to bank them, why are they a different business than your bowling alleys, your grocery stores, your whatever, your mom and pop barbers, whoever?
Yeah.
Why we say we want to do business with them? Why would we treat them different?
Absolutely. Why do we expect them to walk around with duffel bags of cash when we wouldn't expect that of the laundromat or the restaurant or any other business?
And the thing about, being Schedule 1 that sucks, for lack of a better word, is you don't have that USDA funding, that SBA funding where you can help somebody you have no experience? All right, what are your projections? We'll figure something out. And hopefully soon with that. But yeah, it's a giant maybe for us.
Okay.
And I know that's a huge step forward for the banking industry.
Yeah.
And there's a few out there, I won't name them, that are good like that too.
No, totally. But so walk me through a little bit more because I love hearing that the option for the maybe is available for people. When people are coming into your bank, they've got a business, they're looking to get, maybe some additional assets or some funding to help them with that. What are some of the things that sets apart like the businesses that you're interested in talking to more, learning more about versus the businesses that's sort of a thanks for coming in, but isn't right for us?
I think the biggest difference from a bank's perspective, from a people perspective, everybody that wants to do it, awesome. Like follow your dream. That's amazing. From the bank's perspective are you planful? Right?
Okay,
You have a business plan. Simple as that. ChatGPT will write it for you.
Okay. Yeah, totally.
Absolutely. If you're not using AI in your life right now, get on board.
It's super fair. Yeah. Don't come in with a one sentence summary of your vision. Please have something more than that.
Have something. So the business plan is huge. Reading through that and understanding, do they really know what they're getting into? Passion, right? Who is it? I think it's one of the fast food. It might be Chick-fil-A. You can't own a Chick-fil-A franchise if you have another job.
Interesting. Okay, for sure.
You have to operate that restaurant. It might maybe not be Chick-fil-A. I don't know, but
they want that buy-in.
You have to be all in. So if you say, "Oh well, yeah, I'm an excavator Monday through Friday, but I have a lot of money and I'm going to get into cannabis," my advice is probably going to be, "Are you sure?"
Yeah. Because
it's going to take, and it's not even just cannabis. Any small business, if you're not all in, right? Literally, and if you look at our vision and values, one of our values is all in, and that speaks to the labor space, speaks to the people we serve. But if you're not all into whatever you're doing, how are you going to succeed? How are you going to do it to the best of your ability and to the best of your employees, people that may lend you money, people that may get you inventory? If you own a retail space and you're not all in, and I make drinks, and my stuff's not moving from your shelf because you're not there, you're not regulating, it's not getting moved, you're not doing the right things. Why do I want to? Sure. I'm not going to waste my inventory on you. I'm going to move to somebody who's there every time I show up, who's passionate, who's got a plan,
who's actually going to move our industry forward. Right. Who's going to keep it chugging along.
So it's like that. Are they all in? Do they have a plan? And just because you don't have a perfect plan, still come talk to us.
Mm-hmm.
We have trying to do math, sorry. Over 100 years commercial banking experience and the people that touch cannabis for us. Just because your business plan's not right doesn't mean we can't help you get it right. Doesn't mean we can't give you advice or somebody else to talk to, or maybe you were talking to some lawyer we've never heard of.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you said Jen's name already, so I'll say it. Like, Jen's phenomenal in the space. Have you talked to Jen? Like, I've never even seen this name you got here. What have they done for you?
For sure.
And people are like, oh, well, I signed up and then they charged me X dollars, and you try to keep a straight face, but you're going, oh, whoa, those are the dollars for your application?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, and even on the other side, you have people that, hey, I have a great lawyer. They've been really helpful with contracts and arrangements, but now suddenly I'm asking them about an application and they have no idea what I'm talking about. And you don't want to be the person that's having to educate the experts. And it's cool sort of bringing it back to this, that when you go to Union Bank and Trust, it's not like I'm going to have to sit down and say, have you ever heard of 280E before?
No.
But it's more, you're going to tell me, hey, here are the things that you need to be aware of as a business owner coming into this space that you might not have thought of before you came here.
Yeah, and I think 280, a lot of the people you talk to, they're going to because 280 is not as effective in the hemp, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the people that are going into the licensing for adult use rec.
Oh, yeah.
And do you know 280E? Because they've been business owners. Have you heard of 280E? Well, no. What is that? Well, you can't reinvest. You got to pay your taxes. You can't get it back. Reinvest it. I mean, obviously, this is one part of it. And they go, oh, well, how do I grow it? Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that functional tax rate is going to be.
It's harder than you think. Yeah, you've been a very successful widget shop owner. I don't know. And yeah, you've always been able to say, write off, when really all that money is going back into the business and making the business bigger, making the business better, moving the technology for whatever it is. Well, you don't have that ability if you're in adult use rec THC, right? So helping them understand that. And we've talked to a couple of people and been like, oh, I have to rethink it. And we haven't heard from them again.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. The traditional business forecasting that I think works for a lot of other small businesses, there are definitely similarities and rhymes with cannabis, but also some things that are take that traditional mindset and sort of flip it.
And then keep with what you asked. It's also that, what's your projections? So finding a cannabis friendly CPA, again, it's money up front people don't think about, but you need projections. If you're going to want funding from us and you've never been in cannabis, because most haven't, right? Or even if you have, some of the people that are in the low potency or in the hemp space are coming forward now because they're going to try to get rec licenses, and helping them understand, what does it look like? What is it going to look like? Because that, with projections, we can talk about how we can lend, right? Talk about the right partners you would need, or who's coming, who's going, essentially. But yeah, there's so many little nuances, one, to banking, but then two, to this space that have to kind of converge to make it work. And I think, we've said it a few times, it goes back to really into the space though. Are you passionate about moving it? Not just you, because you can't be a selfish operator in this market. Are there some markets now, the MSOs are doing all this stuff in other states and convulging, and they're being invested in, they're selling stock, they're publicly traded and things like that now. But in our space, the more, not that we already have MSOs in the state, obviously, but some really good ones, some awesome people, but we're still ground up. We're not I can't even think of the right word. We're new.
Yeah. We're still, I think, like pre-bubble is how I've been describing it to people. And I think bubble so often is seen as like a negative thing that's going to then blow up and pop. And there definitely will be that bubble to the market.
Absolutely.
But I think we're right now at like that. We haven't even been filled with air. We're just so close. And
that, to your point though, it's a lot of things people don't want to hear. There's not a state that hasn't had a burst, and some are big, some are poof. But there's going to be a burst, and there's going to be licenses that go for sale and consolidated licenses, and being ready for that too. You as an operator, your price per pound is going to come down. The longer we've been in, there's just, everything's going to. Yeah.
There were licenses sold in Vegas for hundreds of thousands of dollars that today I don't think you could even flip one for $1,000. It's like, as the industry matures and expands, the break points of it just keep shifting. And
Yeah, I was talking to another banker in DC. They're from a New Jersey bank, and they had a guy come in and wanted to get a $250,000 loan for a license. They're like, no, dude.
Yeah.
We don't need to underwrite that. We're good.
Yeah, exactly. So transitioning a little bit, I'd love to hear what are some of the things that you're excited for in this oncoming industry? As a cannabis consumer yourself, like I'm excited to walk into stores, be able to have choices. What are some of the things that you hope to be able to choose from?
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing I'm excited for is the stigma to go away.
For sure.
You know, I have a very successful relative cousin, uber successful, who's been a user, a smoker forever. And that's always been like, he's kind of had to hide that. And why? This dude owns a home. He's got 2 cars. Wife's a nurse. Like why is that a thing that's a back burner thing? So one, I'm excited for that. There's so many people, and we've already learned this in Minnesota. Just, you know, I'll use my wife. Don't listen, Morgan. She has 2 drinks. She drinks those drinks. I compare it to like you were drinking a beer earlier.
For sure. Oh yeah.
Two Hearted. Love Two Hearted. Right. It's one of the few I would go to. If you don't have that or a couple other beers, I'm like, oh, good. Give me a whiskey. My wife is not abnormal. She's got her drinks now. Right.
Yeah.
She goes, I know what to get her. They come home. You know, she doesn't want to get super high anymore. We got 2 little kids and she just wants to chill.
Totally.
So for that too, to make it normalized, take the stigma out, be able to just go grab a drink, grab flour, grab a gummy, whatever, wherever. And, you know, we were down at Earl Giles for the Canna Club. And,
yeah, for sure. Wednesday nights,
Wednesday
something fun to
nights,
check
yes,
out. Yeah,
and
yeah.
It was fun. But people are, you know, they're enjoying just like you would beers.
Yeah.
And I'm excited for that to be the normalcy of it. The options are going to be great, but just not the stigma. You know, it's been insane. And then, you know, to get extra deep as we remove some of these people from prison or from jail or take some of these fines back or make it equitable.
Yeah.
You know, just growing up, you know, I grew up in a very mixed family and seeing how it's not socially equitable. You know, some people get pulled over with weed and that's a ticket. Some people get pulled over with weed and that's jail.
Absolutely.
And I think we all figured out it just depends on how you look or maybe what you're driving.
100%.
And so I'm really excited about that. But yeah, that's the most exciting thing, to kill the stigma.
I think that's super fair. When we first started up this podcast, as I mentioned, days before legalization, if I technically got caught as a licensed teacher in Minnesota consuming cannabis, I'd lose my teaching license. It's cool now being at a part in Minnesota today where, as an educator, I can say I'm a cannabis consumer and not have that be something that carries with it the legal stigma.
Right.
I'm ready for that social stigma, as you might were mentioning, to also slowly begin to trickle away and have this be just another thing that people do in their free time, like painting or like drinking alcohol or like anything. It can be a hobby and something that when done responsibly isn't the end of the world.
Or when you go up north irresponsibly, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There's no place to go.
Exactly. Well, Brandon, thank you so much for coming in today. It was so great chatting with you, hearing a little bit more about Union Bank and Trust, the history that you guys have, and some of the ways that you can help people as they move forward, both in the hemp space, but also in the oncoming adult use space.
Yeah, it's exciting. I'm just happy to come in. It's very cool. And like I said, I've been listening and seeing and just, you know, it feels good as a banker, as a professional to say, all right, we do know those people, so we're on the right track. It's a cool thing, and we're so excited to help and just drive it forward, especially, you know, our board literally said, go grow the industry. And that's exciting.
Yeah, we think that's, from the outside perspective, also very, very exciting. So we're happy to have you here. For people that want to get in touch with you or maybe contact Union Bank and Trust, where would you send them?
www.ubtmn.com is our webpage. Okay. We just launched 2 weeks ago our cannabis-related banking. It's third tab over. That's got that. There's some phone numbers on there too. But for me, it's 612-437-5207. Our bpadget@ubtmn.com.
Perfect. So we'll put both the web address, your phone number, and the email address in the show notes so people can check those out, get in touch, and get ready for everything that's coming next.
Yeah, exciting times.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much again. We'll be right back. Perfect.
Beauty.
Awesome. Anything else that you wanted to touch on that we didn't get a chance to cover? I mean, I think
I think we got it all. Yeah.
sweet. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, truly. Thank you so much
I
for
think the only thing, and it's out there already, but there's no Canada tax for us. But if they go to our website, they'll see that.
Oh, I think we can talk about that if you
Okay.
have another 30 seconds. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Still rolling.
Sweet. All right.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he keeps the cameras always going.
Gotcha.
Sometimes it's good, sometimes not good.
Sitting down, the cameras are on.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Is there a blooper reel I get to see?
Yeah. It's for the Patreon subscribers. So one thing that people in the cannabis industry, both hemp and now adult use, are becoming increasingly more, common with is the cannabis tax.
Mm-hmm.
You have the attorney's fee, you know what they are, and suddenly that cannabis attorney is a little bit more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
You're working with that accountant, suddenly having that cannabis expertise just costs you more.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like in terms of banking? You guys are really proud about not having that cannabis tax. What does that mean to you guys?
So I kind of talked about it earlier, right? Whether you're a bowling alley or a bar or whatever, a trucking company, we bank you because we want to. And so we maybe easier for us because we're not new to the market. We started with one company and no Canada tax there. So as they came on, we never added that because as it came through, again, it was recommended people. It was people you want to work with, people you want to support. So the way we look at it is we want to support you. We also want to support our construction companies. We want to support our bars. We want to support all our clients.
For sure, yeah.
So if we levy $1,200 on waivable a month or 30 cents per $1,000 in cash deposit over 30,000, how do we help you move forward?
Yeah.
So our fees are the standard fees, right? It's $15 a month. That could be waived. There's some earnings credits out there. If the more you deposit, the more your earnings credit is, can waive if you're doing the ACHs, if you're doing the wires, you're doing the ancillary services. Those things cost, but the more you deposit, the more you get back to waive that. I guess our vision is just, I've said it 2 or 3 times, you're a business we want to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Why would we put shackles on it? Why would we slow you down by making you have to come up with a rent payment to bank with us? Everybody's in it to make money. It's going to be, if you do any search historically through the exhausted markets, it's a race to the bottom anyways.
Yeah.
The bottom is relative. The bottom is just standard fees.
Mm-hmm.
So we just figured we'll stay with standard fees. We already had, I think before this summer and before legalization, we had like 21 entities and we weren't Canada taxing them.
Okay, for sure.
Well over double that now. And we're just not Canada taxing them either because we want them to succeed. And we want people to trust in what we do, I guess.
Yeah. No, I think you did a great job of explaining it before where I love we all succeed when we all succeed. We don't want you to be our partner and then to drag you down.
Right.
We want us all to rise up together, be it
Exactly.
through connections, be it through good services. I think that's a really unique part about Union Bank and Trust that personalizes the services that you guys are providing.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. If it's $1,200 a month to bank, we can all do math, right? It's $120,000 a year.
Yeah.
Well, it's more than that. It's $144,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's a lot of money and a lot of cannabis products.
That is a lot. That's a lot. That's irresponsible use.
Yeah, exactly. That would not be personal for sure. Ever felt like running a cannabis business means running in circles just to get basic banking? Union Bank and Trust gets it. They've been helping cannabis businesses for over 10 years, solving problems like securing accounts, managing cash flow, and navigating regulations. No more jumping through hoops, no more runarounds. Just straightforward banking solutions built on trust, integrity, and performance. Check out unionbankandtrust.com today. That's unionbankandtrust.com.